Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky.
the doctor is in.
We are all the way live. We
We're
are
live.
in. We are
Fantastic.
excited. We are more than halfway through our Touchtober
I
marathon
know.
of information and sharing and advocacy, all things breast cancer in October, not just the pink, but it is really about making sure that breast cancer action is at the forefront. And today's topic could not be more in line with that. We're talking about clinical
Yeah,
trials.
clinical trials, my favorite topic. My favorite topic. But yeah, can you believe Touchtober is halfway over?
Halfway
That was
over,
such a
it's
good thing.
busy, a
I
very, very busy month.
very busy month. And to me, October is like Black History Month. It's like February. Okay, let's just talk about it. But it's in the media. People are talking about it. They're wearing pink. They're doing all this stuff. So we get a lot of attention, which is great. But we live
Mhm.
with this 365 days a year. So we just wanted to say let's do the party. Let's have the party in October, but let's keep up the conversations. But we've been doing shows on Sundays and Wednesdays this month, and we have more to
Fantastic.
come, but we're so excited to have you guys here today. And we have a sandbox, and we love to have everybody in our sandbox because we know we can't have this fight alone. None of us can. So we're so happy to have a partner share in the camp sandbox with us. So
Right.
you guys introduce yourselves. Dominique, you go first.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Dominique Bethia, and I am the outreach manager at Share Cancer Support. We are a nonprofit in New York City, but our reach extends much further. I direct a program known as the Ambassador Program. Our program specializes in training and educating and empowering women of color in New York City about breast, ovarian, and uterine cancers. It's my life's greatest work, my life's most meaningful work, and it's something that, doing it brings me much joy and pleasure. Colleen?
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Colleen Crespo, and I kind of roll across the realm of things. I am a clinical researcher involved in data management for almost 25 years, and I've been involved in ophthalmology, oncology, liver, and heart research from a data management perspective. I serve as a patient advocate for the Alliance for Clinical Trials in Oncology. And with the Alliance for Clinical Trials in Oncology, I serve as co-chair as for the Health Disparities Education Group, and also as co-chair of the Patient Advocacy Group. And then I am secretary of Sisters Network Triangle. We are a regional area organization, part of our national first Black breast cancer support group headquartered in Texas. And so I do the realm across research, my volunteers a patient advocate, and my sisters network as an outreach in the community. And I am also a 12-year breast cancer survivor. I HER2 negative, ER positive, mastectomy, chemotherapy, no radiation, and plastic surgery. So I've been through the circle, and I'm so glad to be here to share my experiences and knowledge.
That's
Wow.
awesome. That's awesome.
We're glad to see you here and
Thank
really
you.
glad to hear your breadth of lived experience, because it sounds like to me you've been doing a lot in clinical trials and data management even before a breast cancer diagnosis.
Yes, I was. And it was still a shock. And I'll
Hmm.
share the story that my sister is also a breast cancer survivor, and she's 10 years younger than me. So my first personal impact was with my sister being diagnosed, even though I had been involved in clinical research with breast cancer for years. And even as a professional, when it touches your heart with a loved one, it really strikes home hard. And you still go through a shock, and let me see what she needs and what can I do for her, and I love her and I don't want to lose her. And you step through the processes almost afresh, even with your educational and experience in the background. It affects us all the same. So we're all on that same learning curve on how to help a survivor and how to be a survivor. I was diagnosed a year after her. She had completed her last surgery and treatment because she did go through radiation also. And then a year later, I was diagnosed. And at
Mm.
my diagnosed time, I felt like I was a pro and I wasn't even shocked for myself. A little numb, a little nervous, but not shocked. So it can be overwhelming, but stay encouraged because the way things have advanced over the years, things have really, really changed. They have really, really, I'm sorry about the phone ringing.
That's okay.
Stop that.
Does your
And
sister have the same breast cancer that you had, Colleen?
no, she did not. She did not. And we also did the genetic testing and we both tested negative on the genetic testing. And that's one thing that has changed over time. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the name of the genetic test, but when I was diagnosed 12 years ago, that was a very expensive test to have. And I think the patent finally ran out on it and more professional companies were able to give the test, and the cost of that test has come down tremendously. It was just amazing in the thousands of dollars that genetic testing cost 15 years ago. So that's a plus that I'm glad to see.
It still is expensive, but more insurance companies are covering it. It's indicated more broadly now. The Society of Breast Surgeons recommends that every woman with a new diagnosis of breast cancer be offered genetic counseling and testing. And now there's more genes than ever before. So I know, like years ago when I got tested, I had family history. They only did the BRCA1 and 2. And now they offer panels of 40 genes, panels of 80 genes, you know, and there's so much more information that we can glean. And it really is mind blowing to not only the patients, but to the doctors. Like information's traveling fast and we all have to keep up with it.
Yeah, and there's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah. But you know, you bring up an interesting fact though, that you didn't have a genetic mutation. I had triple negative. I didn't have a genetic mutation, which leads to our bigger topic is I don't think we know. I don't think we know about all the genes. I think Black women have some genetic things going on that we don't know about. But guess why? Because we don't have any research. We don't have any data. And I think that we just don't, you know, because we don't participate in trials and often not getting genetic testing, I don't think we know enough about our genetic makeups to know how Black bodies are different.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, you know, one of our medical advisory board members, Melissa Davis, was on the show the other day, and she was talking about a new gene that she's identified in where in Africa, Mo? I think in Nigeria, somewhere in Africa. And it's called the Duffy something gene. I have to look it up. I should know that by now. But it's a new gene for Black women from African descent. So I think that's where, you know, we need more research. We need more Black bodies and research. We are not going to change these mortality numbers and make any headway without more data. So all the work that you're doing is so important to bring, you know, to bring the clinical trial conversation to the table, but we need more of it. We need more.
And I agree.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that along with the genetic factor, what we are also evaluating and testing that, and particularly for the Black community, for a couple of reasons, I think you'll understand that we're also researching the environmental background for breast cancer, because a lot of the Black community has grown up in we want to say the poor neighborhood, but it's where you find more garbage dumps, more electrical power lines, and things of that nature that have been pushed out into the poorer neighborhoods, that they're starting to actually research a lot more now. I became involved in a study over at UNC Chapel Hill, and it didn't relate environmentally to where I live now, but I think about myself as a child. It may have been different, but they wanted to collect hair samples, nail samples. They wanted to take wipes from within my house along the banisters and the seals and collect. But I think about when I was a young girl in my neighborhood, and I grew up in a military town. My father was an Army man. So we lived in Middletown, America, not a mixed race neighborhood. But I remember the pesticide truck coming through our neighborhood and spraying for mosquitoes. We didn't know that there was anything wrong with it. We didn't get any flyers in the mail saying they were coming on this day. Keep your children in, bring your dogs in. We were running behind the truck playing. We didn't know any better. And so I'm telling my age, I'm 62, and I was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 at that time. But that's how they did things, and we weren't forewarned. So the environmental factors, and I'm glad to hear
Right.
about the team being located in Africa because it's new to us, but not new to the human body. So that is fantastic news.
Right.
And
Right.
nothing new under the sun. But Colleen, you are right. Even in the community where I work, they used to mine uranium in the early 1900s, right? And we
Yeah.
wonder why there's a cancer cluster, right? We wonder all these
Yes.
farms, just because it's from a farm doesn't mean that it's organic, doesn't mean that pesticides weren't in this soil, years and years ago. And all of those things contribute to the causes of cancer, to gene changes, right? How a gene
Right.
can change over time. We call it epigenetics, and that'll be a different topic altogether that we got to get
Right.
into. But
Oh,
Dominique, I wanted
fantastic.
to ask you, when you talk to a patient about clinical trials, like how do you explain what a clinical trial is? Do you? Because I'm sure you have to give that definition over and over again, don't you?
So I will say it's clinical trials and genetic testing. That's what we really have been, trying to push within our community. The ladies that work within our program, our ambassadors, most of them are survivors, and what they do is they try to, speak as much as possible, but again, we have to keep the message so that people can, digest it and understand it. I did kind of want to piggyback on something that Ricky was saying. We were working with the University of Indiana has this great program that's a tissue bank. So they have an initiative that goes around to a different city every year to collect tissue samples from women of color, so African American, Latina, also and Asian women. And it's kind of interesting, given the background of, when people hear clinical trials or when people hear genetic testing, they assume guinea pig, right? So us trying to talk to women at, the health fairs and places like that, it's something that we have to let them know, hey, this is okay. This is not Tuskegee where, we need to have specialized medicine. So you're part of that picture. You're part of the equation. And I think that's a message that they don't hear. I think they just hear, come sign up, we'll give you $100, or come sign up. And people are very, they don't trust the system. So when the ladies and, myself, when we go out into the community, we have to say, hey, this is how you find out, if you're at risk for something. I'll tell you a little bit of my story. When I told my grandmother, that I'm working for an organization that, talks about breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, she said, "Oh, well, my sister had breast cancer." Now I'm at this time maybe 30 years old, and I had never ever heard this information from her. This is a woman who raised me, I was always around, and I found out when she said that. So it also opens up
Wow.
us talking about in our family, I mean, as a woman of color, we hear, oh, Auntie Retha just was sick. Well, what did Auntie Retha have? You know what I mean? So that is the importance of the genetic testing. That's the importance of, talking to your family and finding out, because if we don't address the past, the present, will haunt us. So.
Yes.
Yeah, we are not talking. We're not talking. There's a study done by the Ad Council a couple of years ago that said 92% of Black women are aware of breast cancer, which is why awareness is like, okay, 25% talk about it,
Wow.
and 17% act on the risk.
Okay.
So we are not talking. We are not talking to each other. We're not talking to our mamas. And we have this HBCU internship program, which we love, our little badass young women. But we asked them to make a video with their moms, to talk about breast cancer. And in every instance of our 15 interns, that was the first conversation they've had with their moms about breast health. They're all like 20, 19, 20, and that's the first conversation they've had that we forced to have happen.
We have a history of being quiet about breast cancer because I remember as a teenager when a Black woman in the community was diagnosed with breast cancer, it was whispered and
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't talked about a lot, and we didn't share
Yeah.
and comfort each other enough. And we need that communication. Ricky, you are so correct. Now, when my sister and I were both diagnosed, we went straight to mom and started asking. And interestingly so, we could find it nowhere in the family as far back as everyone could think and talk. My sister and I were the first. But
Wow.
we got people to open up and talk. We learned about other illnesses in the family by asking. We have a history of not talking. By asking, we did open those doors and learned about a lot of things because we're also, and that's another topic, very quiet about mental health
Oh, yeah.
in the family. So that's a carryover from
we.
there. We're very
Yeah.
quiet
Yeah.
about. So
Mhm.
another
And
topic.
finances too, Colleen.
Mhm.
Finances, there's
Yes.
some things that we just don't talk about, and whether it is, and I want to explore this further, whether it is lack of access to appropriate resources, whether it is lack of historic understanding, right? If we don't understand a thing, we can't explain a thing. Therefore, we teach don't ask about a thing, you know?
Correct.
And maybe a sum of all of the above, but we knew growing up, don't get sick, because my grandparents raised us and they didn't have a whole lot of insurance and a lot of access. We didn't talk too much about health, and we said God's going to provide and make a way, and we didn't ask a lot of questions about money either,
Right,
and
right,
we
right.
And we had a lot of home remedies that grandma brought
Yes,
out
we did.
before you ever ventured to a doctor.
A
Right.
lot of
There
them
were a
work
lot
too.
of
A
home
lot of them work.
Yes,
What
they
did Chris
Yes,
Rock
they did.
say? Cough syrup for everything, right?
Yes,
Right.
You know, that was the
Robitussin. Put some
remedy.
tussin on it. Yep.
Right,
That's
put some
right.
tussin on it, right?
yes, that's definitely true. Definitely true.
Wow. Colleen, so you've been working in this clinical trial space for 20 something years, how many years?
About 25. Yeah.
So tell me what it was like and how it's evolved over time.
Oh my
Like-
goodness. We started off with, and the amazing part, with clinical trials being paper-based. It was
yeah.
paper-based, everything was collected on paper, you mailed stuff in, and it was a very slow cycle. And from there, we advanced to the computer, and then from there, we advanced to the EDC, electronic data capture with the real-time collection. And now they're even going to data mining with the medical records directly to the patient records versus collecting it inside of an EDC. They're now doing medical record connections and bypassing EDC sometime and doing the data mining. Big, 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 big business, big money, and big advances now. Yeah, it was back in the day when you closed out a trial, you had to take probably 1,000 pounds, and I'm probably running short on that worth of paper. You then had to organize, categorize, file, package up, index it on an Excel spreadsheet so that if anyone ever asked about a particular patient, a particular site, you could go literally say, I need box number 72, and I know folder 37 is in there for patient XYZ. Wait a few days for the warehouse to retrieve the box, bring it to your location, and you get to it. And packing up an archive of paper-based trials is dirty, hard, long work. So I have been very happy to see it move from paper-based to electronic. Now, has paper-based disappeared completely? No, we have that couple of percent of paper-based trials that still stick around because you may have a PhD or MD that has been given a very small amount of money for a trial, and the EDC or data mining is just not in the budget. You don't see it a lot, but it still exists because it's cost efficient for some clinical trials.
And even back then, we didn't have Herceptin. Think of all the drugs that we didn't have 25 years ago. I don't even know. I mean, I know when I took carboplatin 10 years ago, it was pretty new then, right?
I was on a
Um,
clinical trial for Herceptin.
Were you really, were you? So,
Yes,
Well,
yes.
thank you for your magic touch,
yeah,
because
thank you.
how about
So,
that? Both of
yeah,
you.
I think
No?
that's an important point. We have to remember all of these therapies started out as clinical trials.
they did.
Yes, they did.
They
Yes.
did, including that Advil you took for a headache, that Tylenol you
Right.
gave your baby. But all the reasons why we're survivors today is because somebody said, okay, I'll do a trial.
I'll do it.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
what we need to encourage is the Black community to come up to date now past the Tuskegee experimentation, where yes, our Black men, brothers and sisters, Black males were taken advantage of, and it's been acknowledged and it's been corrected now. Going forward with what we call the informed consent, which is part of a clinical trial now. It has to explain what the trial is about. They have to make sure that you understand it. And there's a principal investigator that we call a PI that is responsible for every site, for every patient that is part of their trial. They have to sign on the dotted line that they will take care of our patients. If we don't get more Black people involved in clinical trials, and we've already proven that we are genetically different, we are going to be left behind on medications and treatments for ourselves. 90% of the clinical trials and experimental drugs are based on the Caucasian community. We have to be involved so that we can see how it affects us and be able to help ourselves health-wise. We cannot sit out on the sidelines of clinical trials. We have to get in. And I volunteered from the first day of diagnosis at the hospital. They're looking for you. They'll come in your room. They'll find you in the room where you're just given a blood sample and say, hey, we're doing XYZ. Can you read this clinical trial? This is the informed consent. And all we're asking for is, while you're getting your blood collected, will you let us have one more extra tube? It's not going to make or break you, my personal opinion, to give that extra tube of blood and to let the research be done. We need advancements for the Black community in all types of medical health issues.
So
I
how
love
do
the way
you-
you
Go ahead.
said that. Go ahead.
No,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was just going to say, being an investigator on a clinical trial, I'm a principal investigator,
Yes,
and
love you.
they're all, thank you. I'm chair of the IRB too, and it is a process, let me tell you.
Yes, it is.
But it's such an important one. And when I talk to patients about it, many times the trials can be registry trials where we just want to see what your decision making is. We want to give you more information to make better decisions. And we want to understand that process. And I guess my question for both of you and for all of you is how do we talk to our community about moving on beyond Tuskegee? How do we move beyond Henrietta Lacks? What does that conversation look like and sound like with patients who are kind of maybe sitting there like this, and they're afraid they've got this diagnosis and they're worried about, their very lives? How do you, both of you, initiate that conversation with a patient?
Well, Dr. Gary, let me say what has become very important over the past 20 or 30 years to help that is to seeing faces like yours in the white coat coming in the office. Black doctors, Black nurses, Black researchers. It has progressed, and it has given the Black community a comfort in knowing that there are Black people involved in the research and that they will look out for the best interest of their family, their community, and their loved ones. So it's just been fantastic. And every time you see that, it's encouraging. The only other point I want to share is, as a patient advocate with the Alliance, we are doing simple language translations. I'm part of that little subcommittee. The average American reads on a sixth grade level. And what we have been doing with the clinical trial results and the paraphrase result is taking them from that scientific level and writing a second version of them, trying to downgrade the language, not calling anyone stupid. It's just a reality of the average reading level is not that of a scientist. Putting the conclusions of the results in a simple language so people can understand what a trial is about and what are the results of the trial. It's time consuming, and it's going to be given that some chemical terminologies, some medical procedures are not going to be downgraded in language, but you can do some things around that sentence structure to simplify the language to let the average American understand clinical trials.
Yeah, Colleen took the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
Say it again. We can't say it enough, babe. Say it again.
Say it
Right.
again, say it again.
I mean, she laid it out perfectly. I can say that, you know, when I first started doing this work, and I first go to the health fairs, and people would see our table, and you know, we tell them about our program, how we're a program for Black women, and we're speaking specifically about breast and ovarian cancer. You know, we get like the eyes, like, really, it's just for us. So, you know, representation matters, period. You know, that's the best way you can say it for you know, our community, you know, the Latino community, the Asian community.
Yes.
People have to see people who look like them talking to them in a way that they can clearly understand. If we don't have that, you know, the statistic Colleen gave, you know, 90%, you know, that's, you know, and then the statistic that Ricky gave, like, we have the information, but what are we doing with that information? And another thing that I will say is, like, I've had people say to me, like, in the commercials about the cancer medications and things like that, I don't see anybody who looks like me. So how can we expect people to, you know, be, you know, agree with a trial, to agree to have genetic testing if, you know, the brochures and the, you know, the commercials don't reflect people that look like them? So it'll remain a disease that they think does not affect them, but it actually adversely affects, you know, people of color even more.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mo, let me share with you one of the things that we are encouraging to our PIs is that when you set your budget for your trials, to please set more money aside for translation of informed consent into various languages targeted toward the community that you are targeting to be involved in trials. So I'm expanding beyond the Black community, but a lot of them say, we don't have the money, but we're asking you to budget that money in the beginning. If you're going into a Spanish community, pay for informed consent to be in Spanish. The Japanese community, the Chinese community, just translations, and a budget for it.
Explain what informed consent means to our audience, because if you've never been exposed to a trial, you probably don't know what that means.
Dr. Mo, I'll let you start that one. I'll come behind you if I need to, because
all right.
So I'll come behind you.
I appreciate that. For any process, we need permission. We need permission from a patient. So, for example, I do genetic counseling and testing on occasion, and there is a process of making sure that a person understands what it is that we're explaining to them. So, do they understand what they're consenting to, and then do they actually give that consent? In particular, for oncology, ASCO has about 14 points of informed consent, whereby we want to make sure a person knows the indications of something, why we're doing it, the risks of something, the benefit of it, the alternatives of it, and so that they're able to then make a decision based upon all of those. So we don't get to take advantage of a person and say, just sign here. We have to make sure that we go through all of the different steps to make sure that they understand how a study was designed, what it's designed to do, who's involved with it, who's storing the data, oversight of that data, who's analyzing it, what happens to your personal information? Does it get what we call de-identified, meaning your name and your date of birth and all identifiers of you then get stripped away, right? So that you can't be traced to it. And then how long does it get stored for? Making sure nobody can sell that information, and then giving you feedback on what the results of that information is. All of that goes into whether or not we get consent or approval or permission from a person. So that's what informed consent is. And Colleen, please fill in, Dominique, fill in anything I might have left out, because those pages, those informed consents can be thick.
They can be thick. That's why we talk about adding in translation. We emphasize to the patient to making sure that they understand the responsibilities. When I say responsibilities, of what's expected of them. Some of them may be, oh, I didn't know I had to come back 6 times. Let them know you got to come, what the trial consists of. You'll have 6 visits. That's just an example. We may ask you for a tissue sample. We may ask you for a urine sample. We may end up asking you some very detailed family history. I've been involved in clinical trial. Will you consent to go back and ask your great grandmother if she's still living to give a mouth swab? How far do you consent for my sample that you're collecting for me to be used in the future? You sign a consent, I approve it for this research project. And then there's another line you'll sign to say that you understand, yes or no, can my sample be used for any future unknown research? You give your permission. You are clearly told you can stop anytime you want to stop. You can withdraw at any time, emphasizing the fact that it does not affect your treatment of your cancer because you choose to pull out of a trial. It emphasizes whether or not you'll be paid or not paid. It emphasizes what the trial will pay for, what they may ask for your insurance to pay for. It gets very detailed, and it's detailed for a reason, because you don't want people to feel like they were taken advantage of. You don't want a person, we call it trial retention. You don't want them to find out something at the 5th visit and they drop out because they didn't understand at the beginning that there were 2 more visits, or that, oh, I could have done this by phone call, but I'm having to have come in, and you lose them. And you don't want to lose patient due to lack of knowledge. It really is invaluable to keep every patient that you possibly can keep in a trial in. Now, of course, there are the physicians who can decide that it's for that patient's well-being that they not be involved anymore. But we don't want to just lose a patient dropping out, lack of knowledge, because of lack of knowledge.
Thank you for
And I
breaking
wanna-
that down. And that really is, all of that stuff and that big thing that you have to sign is really a result of all the bad history of the Henrietta Lacks stuff and the syphilis stuff. That, guess what? They weren't asked for permission. They didn't sign a document saying you can use my cells. And so that all, is a result of that happening. So we are protected. So you feel as a patient, you're empowered with information to know exactly what's going on with the trial, which makes it it's safer for you, it's not like the years ago.
Right. And it's doable. You know what I
It's
mean? Like,
doable.
that's the other part of it, because I think that people hear all of this and they say, oh, that's too much, it's too this, it's that. And I'm fighting for my life here. But part of that process, and Dominique, you can weigh in and back me up on that, helping people understand that informed consent and walking them through it. I'm sure that they are glad to have somebody like you explain it to them in terms they can understand, and not just say, okay, here's a stack of papers, let us know what you decide, see you later, hand on the doorknob. Talk to us about the importance of your role in accruing or getting people to sign up and stay on trials.
Sure. I mean, I will say one of the things that Colleen had brought up is that we at SHARE, the ambassadors and the staff, we're asking the clinical, the researchers for greater equity and access. And what do we mean by greater equity and access? So let's say, for example, most take a clinical trial and we'll say you have to come 10 times, at 2 o'clock, to, maybe some suburb. But what about the women who cannot go at 2 o'clock in the middle of the day, who work 9 to 5, who have, 2 children, and who do not have access to transportation? So on the committees that we are on, we ask, okay, maybe you should change the time. Maybe you can have it in the morning so that the woman can get there before work. Maybe you can have it at closer to the end of the day. We understand researchers, they're, on a different schedule, but we want greater equity. We want you to have a broader picture. We don't want you to have just a small subset of people. We want to be included as persons of color in this trial. So we need that equity. Can we, if it's in New York City, can we have Metro cards, or can we have Uber, supplied to the
Right.
women that are going to be
Yes.
part of this trial, regardless of
Right.
if they can pay for it or can't pay for it. And as Colleen was saying, adding that to the budget, adding that to what the researchers ask for when, they request money. Now we know they want to keep it at a certain point because they want it to be covered. We understand how finances work, but we need to be included as persons of color. And these are things that, if everyone starts asking for it, then you get it. You have to ask, like my grandfather said, closed mouth don't get fed. We have to ask for what we want, and then we have to demand it after we ask.
Right.
So they get tired of hearing me say it at our biannual meetings at the Alliance, but I stand up and say, well, the doctors and nurses and the technicians and the PIs and everyone else is getting paid. Why can't we pay the patients to participate? Oh, it's a conflict of interest. It's not ethical. Why not? Nobody can tell me why not. They just quote that to me. Okay, it's not ethical. No, these people are taken off of work. They're asking someone to drive there. They're traveling a longer distance out of their budget for gas or bus.
Right.
They're having to pay a babysitter to take care of the children.
Right.
The person who drives there normally has to take off work to come with them, and there's a loss of income. I want to see better payments to patients in order to retain Black patients in clinical trials and other races. Don't get me wrong, but we have a disparity here. I feel like patients should have a bigger piece of the pie.
I love that you said that, Colleen, because the way it's explained is like, okay, if we pay a person to participate in a study, it's coercion, right? But doesn't someone ultimately analyze that data and put forth potentially a product that goes to market that then is profitable, right?
Yes.
And it isn't part of equity helping that patient to be able to afford their treatment, right? And you certainly don't want to disincentivize a patient who opts not to be in a trial, right? I get that. We don't want to penalize somebody who doesn't, want to be in a trial, but for your trouble, you should be able to, I think, at least be able to live, right? And at least be able to manage any inconvenience that that might come up as a result of that trial. And that is something that's really challenging to do, challenging to even talk about, but a conversation that whose time has come. Right? Because patients they can make informed decisions about their care, and they have the right to do what they so choose with their data. And we're seeing this more. Ricky put a hashtag, Black Data Matters, right? Hashtag Black Data Matters. And it matters now more than ever. And
more than ever.
And we should have control over what happens with our data.
No, I think there's a couple questions in the chat, Mo, that are interesting. And Ivis just weighed in. Ivis works at Share also. That reimbursement of expenses is often provided for trials. But you know what? If you're a single mom, you got 3 kids, you may not have the money up front to wait to get reimbursed. Like, the money should come as part of the whole complex of doing it. But there is a lot of stuff out there, a lot of resources to help with that. But somebody asked about, where can you find a clinical trial? So there's a couple of sources. There's this crazy website called clinicaltrials.gov, but it's like going to hell.
The wild west.
With a blindfold, with your hand tied behind your back. And it's like, I don't know how many trials are in there, but it's really very difficult to navigate. And
worse than the Dewey Decimal System, isn't it?
Yes.
But like, for example, the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, they have a clinical trial portal just for triple negative breast cancer trials. But also we have a partnership with Citizen, and I'll put this in the chat as well. And Citizen actually is our partner. They we kind of constructed Black Data Matters with them, and they have a way to digitize your health records free to the patient all HIPAA protected. And then they have your records in there, and they actually will match your body profile and your, your body biology and chemistry to trials that work for you in your neighborhood. Like I get a report every month saying, here are the trials within 50 miles of where you live, Ricky. I
Oh,
think I don't
fantastic.
need one right now, but I'll put that in the chat, and we have a portal with them that we use. But we can help you find a trial when you need it. Just, you know how to find us, Ricky at touchbbca.org. But it is really a difficult process. And one of the hardest parts of it is pulling together your records. Like if you don't have my chart or something technical, you have to put out stuff. When I was doing it, there was no technology. So I had like a pile of papers this big. I still have it in a box. All
Yeah,
my scans and everything. But now on my system, I have like an app on my phone I can go to, and I can look back at my scans from 2011. So that helps a lot. And I've helped a lot of people through that process, and it's no joke.
it's not.
We're happy to help you, but that's a good place to start. But
And Share also has a very easy to navigate
great,
section on our website for clinical trials as well.
great. Let's put that in
Yep.
the chat too. We'll put that in there.
Yes,
But
please put that link in the chat, and
but we're happy to
move it
help
forward.
you find a trial if you want one. And I see some people saying, how do I find one in my neighborhood? We'll reach out to us, and we'll try to help you find one, because we need our bodies in this research, not only to save yourself, but for your daughters, for my granddaughters, for my,
Yes,
for the greater good, for your sisters, for your mothers,
Mhm.
So there's people putting some stuff in the chat about where to find them, but it's kind of got to start with your doctor's office. But a lot of times doctors don't offer a trial to Black women.
I was just getting ready to jump in there,
Yes.
Ricky, and say,
Yeah,
the
no,
number
go
one
on.
reason, right, why Black women are not enrolled in clinical trials is because they are not asked
Right,
by their doctors. Their
Right.
doctors don't bring it up,
right,
either because they don't have the trials, or they don't know about the trials, or
Right.
they're too busy to match that person to potential eligible trials, and it's not on their radar. So my
Right.
question for both of you and your organizations is there any crosstalk to help that number one factor, right? It's the number one factor. It's not even whether or not Black women consent to trials. It's the fact that they're not even asked about
Yes.
trials.
Mhm.
What are we doing on that side of things? And you can certainly flip it back on me. I get it. But from the advocacy and from the structural standpoint, from the community standpoint, what are we doing to address that with our doctors?
Yeah.
Well, I can share, and I'm laughing because it was a discussion at one of our meetings 2 weeks ago. And we said, what if we start asking the doctor, not just how many did you get to consent, how many did you actually ask to
Ask.
report
Right.
that number back? And everyone felt like there would be a lot of kickback from the doctors because they know they're not asking like they should to the
They're not.
minority community. But we were pushing, saying that is a factor that is not being calculated. How many are you asking? Not just how many did you get to participate. And it's going to be an eye opener for the medical community. We have to push and encourage and push and encourage for them to reach out to the Black community to be involved. Ourselves too, asking for clinical trials, but they need to do due diligence as a professional and ask you to participate. And I really think that question, even though there was some kickback, is something that should be asked. Who did you ask?
Who'd you
I
ask?
love that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who'd you ask? I was on a panel a couple years ago with this doctor who I can't even remember her name. It's like blocked from my memory, but she offered trials in her office, and she had all the stuff. I can give you a gas card. I can give you whatever, a Whole Foods gift card, whatever. She had all the stuff. And she was saying, well, my office can give you that. I can help you with all these things to participate in my work and come in my office. And I said, well, how do people know about it? How do your patients know about it? She said, well, I don't know. Somebody in my office must be telling them. So in her best intention, she had all the stuff and was willing to help, but she doesn't understand Black people, Black women. Like I'm a Black woman. Can I please have a gas card? We're not going to do that.
Mhm.
So
Or just assuming somebody else is going to ask the question, even, right? There's the problem.
Right.
Somebody else.
Ask for it. Well, somebody can ask for it. Well, they're not going to ask for it. Make it known. And you should be asking people, what do you need? How do you feel? What do you need? you know, and I said, well, how would you treat your daughter or your mother?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Treat them differently. Would you tell them about it? Would you reach out in a different way, you know?
Right. And Ricky, let me expand on that because we are a prideful community. Instead of them asking, do you need a gas card or do you need this? Just say, do you want one?
Do you want one? Can I give you one? Or you know what? Here you go. Here
Let
it
them
is.
keep their
Here.
dignity. Do you want a gas card? Do
Right,
you
right.
need a food card? Do you want transportation instead of that, do you need it?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah, that's
do you
I
want it?
love that. Change the language,
Change the
right?
Change
language.
the
Change
Right.
language.
the
Change it
language.
to make it more empowering. Absolutely.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes,
absolutely. I mean,
But it
I
takes a
think
level of understanding, you know?
yes.
I do think that you know, to also piggyback on that, I share, you know, we really believe in harnessing the volunteer, but I feel like one of the underutilized people in the field is the, you know, the patient navigator. So we
Yes.
try to educate the patient navigators because, as you were saying, a lot of the times the doctor, you know, will not even have the conversation, you know, with the patient. And I'm not getting on the doctors, but you know, sometimes, you know, the patient maybe trusts the patient navigator with a little bit more information. So if the patient navigator or, you know, the helpline volunteer, they might be more receptive to take it from them. So we're trying to educate, you know, those people as well so that they can, you know, give them the information. And, you know, with some doctors, I've also heard that a lot of them, you know, there's a myth with people of color that, hey, they don't feel the same pain, so maybe I don't need to give them that information. So
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
that's another thing that we must overcome.
But
Yes.
bias is real.
Oh, yes.
It's definitely it's
Yes,
so
it
we
is.
there's a few hurdles that we have to, you know, overcome, but I think that the power is in the people. If we can give this information to the volunteers that are in the hospital and the navigators, and we remember they are not doctors, they cannot give medical advice, but
Right.
if we can give them information like, hey, you do not have to have this fear. You are not a guinea pig. We're, you know, as Colleen was saying, informed consent that exists. That is, we
You're
are
in
in
control. You're in
2021.
control.
Yes,
Right? You're in
so
control.
we are bound by that now. So we cannot be afraid. If we continue to do the same thing, we're going to get the same result, and that's not what we want.
Wow. I think also keeping in mind that all trials are not drug trials. While
Right.
it is important for us to participate in drug trials, there are trials looking at whether or not things like cold cap therapy, you know, cryotherapy works on our hair and our nails and our feet for neuropathy. There are trials for quality of life. There are trials for these estrogen blockers. There are trials for people who don't even have cancer but have family history. And somebody asked that in the chat also. There are all types of research that's being done that needs our input. And so I want people to watch, you know, people who are watching to understand that also, that everything we're talking about here is not some new and experimental drug. The other part of it is that even the drugs that are being offered are the standard of care. So you're not going to get less than what you should get. You'll get what you should get plus something else if you are part of a drug trial. And
There's no
so we
sugar
now
pill.
safeguard, right, that you're not just going to get the sugar pill, you're not going to get no treatment. We will stop enrolling. There was a trial we were doing called TMIST. We were looking at 2D versus 3D mammograms. And we stopped the trial because we said, well, doctors, in good faith, we believe that 3D mammograms are better. It's like the difference between console TVs and flat screens. Nobody buys floor model TVs, console TVs anymore. We all buy the flat screens, right? So we're not going to
Yes.
send our patients for 2D mammograms if we believe that 3D is superior. So the trial was stopped and we didn't enroll patients. And so we're not going to do that to our patients. And so it's really important to know that you're not going to get less than what you should get if you did choose to participate in a trial. But there's so many, and it all starts with a conversation. If your doctor doesn't bring it up, you can certainly bring it up to that doctor, to that nurse, and then have that conversation and make somebody sit down with you and go through it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Dr. Mo, can you Oh, Dr.
Go
Mo,
ahead.
please explain a little bit more to the community, a little further than where you stopped at where the trial was stopped, but tell them why the trial was stopped and what happens positively from that.
Ooh, so when a trial gets stopped, it gets stopped for a couple of reasons. One, we may stop because we have overwhelming evidence that something works and we
Yeah.
have enough data to analyze, right? And so we say, okay,
Right.
this really works well. We don't need to
Right.
enroll and experiment
Right.
anymore. We may now optimize a dose. We may now be ready for FDA approval for something. We may now make recommendations to guidelines for something. Trials can be stopped because of adverse experiences. We find enough people aren't doing well. They're not responding as well. It's not doing what we anticipate it might do. Trials can be stopped because we find that something, that the enrollment is low. So for the example, the radiology trial, that TMIS
Right.
trial, we stopped because we weren't enrolling patients. We don't want to randomize them because patients can be what we call randomized, meaning assigned a random position within. You either get something or you get something else. And we were not comfortable with that process. And so when a trial is then stopped, we continue to hold that data and that information and we analyze why it is or why it isn't, but we don't continue to put people in a study that has been stopped.
Bravo,
Right.
bravo.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank
And,
you for
and to
that.
your earlier point, Mo, I just finished 2 clinical trials. One of them was the impact of stress on Black breast cancer survivors. And they measured my blood. I had to go to blood work every quarter for a year and fill out a lifestyle kind of behavioral survey about stuff, how I, what I do with my life, exercise, food, whatever. And it was very simple. I just showed up and got a blood test 4 times.
Mhm.
The other one was measuring my environment, the chemicals in my environment. So I wore 2 bracelets for a week, one on each wrist, and one measured the chemicals I was putting on my body, like shampoos and lotions and baby oil, whatever. And then the other one measured the chemicals in my environment. So like in my car, in my computer, whatever, I don't know, but I wore these 2 bracelets for a week. It was simple. I did one where they measured my sleep pattern. So I try to walk the walk and do these trials whenever I can because I want to be a part of it. I want to be part of science. But, look around at all the stuff that we do in our lives. We're buying the latest iPhone, paying whatever. How much is the iPhone now? $1,200 for God's sake for it. The latest TV set. We're all into the science of technology. We're buying a new car.
Yes.
We buy a new car that has brakes that can kill, has stuff in there that you can kill yourself with, right? If the brakes don't work in the new car, it's just as dangerous as cancer, right? And so we're taking a risk on all these things in our lives, right? So what's the difference? If that's all science-based, it's all somebody thinking of an idea. And I got this idea from Hadia last week, Mo, that, she's right that we're testing out all these different things that are based on science. There's no difference here. And this is life-changing science. This is life-changing science. And we have to engage because we have to stop the dying. And we know, like for me, I did TAC chemo, which everybody does pretty much, right? First, Taxotere, Cytoxin, Adriamycin, the Red Devil. But guess what? It didn't work for me. My cancer came back a year later. And so at the time, carboplatin and gemcitabine they weren't trial drugs, but they were experimental. But that's what saved my life. When you did Herceptin, that's saving somebody's life. So if we're not doing this work, we're not going to get where we need to be. So it's so important for us to just think about the importance of research. And there is no sugar pill. And, a lot of this messaging is coming from breasties. People call you and say, the doctor said X, Y, Z, but what do you think? And so if I'm not armed with the right information to give my breastie friend who's going through the same thing, she's going to walk away with a myth or with a myth truth, right? So it's on us as breasties to do the right thing and learn and know and be educated so we can pass on the right information.
Ricky, you bring up a good point too, is that, clinical trials are not just for metastatic disease. And I think that is a huge, huge myth. And I would love it if each of you would just reiterate that, as we talk about this, because people think probably the number one thing they think is, I'm not there yet.
It's a last resort.
Right. I'm not there. And even their doctors may perpetuate that. Well, we don't have to do that just yet. We don't have to explore that just yet. And I think that part of the challenge is even just sort of normalizing the opportunity for clinical trials early on,
Right.
because this is the era of personalized medicine. And we
Right.
have to get beyond the generic stuff, beyond the more toxic things, to tweak and tailor down what is a more precise medicine for us. And we can
Right.
only do that if we have our unique information to personalize that medicine too.
Right.
Correct, personalized medication. And when people say to me, well, the clinical trial is not going to help my health. And I said, maybe, maybe not. But what you have to think about is this can help your child, your
Your
grandchildren,
daughter.
and generational going forward.
Mhm,
Think about
mhm.
your bloodline and how you would like to help your
Mhm.
future generations and your family to recover from a hereditary disease or something of
Mhm.
that nature. Maybe not now, but look at your loved ones down the road.
Right.
Yeah, and the I Spy trial actually did. It helped a
Yes,
number of
it
people
did.
in those experimental arms. You know,
Right.
it saved lives, not future lives. It saved lives of the people who are enrolled in that trial. And so I
Exactly, it
think
did.
it's really important to note that it's not just for future research either. This can impact you now.
Exactly. That's your talk about stopping the trial, immediately
Right.
finding out that there is help now.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Dominique,
Wonderful.
if you could say that there was one myth that you would want to dispel, or something that you hear over and over again from women when you broach this topic, you're at health fairs, you go to the church, you're doing what you do. What might that thing be, and what would you say to people who could be watching thinking the same thing today?
We get the fear, we still live in the shadows of Tuskegee, right? So it's a distrust and a fear of the system because, as people of color, we know how we've been treated. We know sometimes when we go to the doctor, we're not believed. And I think that people just see it again. I'm going to be, number 275, I'm a guinea pig. I'm not, what my part doesn't matter. And we want people to know, yes, this is how all the medicines were created. Someone had to be a part of the test to know that it actually worked. So I want us to get rid of this fear, in 2021, 22, cancer doesn't have to be a scarlet letter. And in our communities, we have to get rid of that, so that's why we have everything in all different languages, because we need all people to, combat cancer. We're not going to end, this if people don't step up and actually, be part of it. So if anyone watching, it's not, we're not going to be, you're not going to have a leg growing off your head if you participate in a clinical trial. This, like Colleen was saying, this helps, your children, your sister, your brother, your grandchildren, the generations you haven't even met yet. We need you. It starts with you. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. And how does it work? What's your response? Do you get a good response?
Sometimes, it's sometimes you have to, as Share, we have a helpline. So, sometimes when we're speaking to people, we're capturing them in the moment at the health fair, at the table. They have less than 60 seconds that they want to be talking to you about anything health related. So you got to get their ear. And then once you get their ear, you give them, okay, please, call the helpline. Everyone on the helpline is a survivor. They can give you more information, but we try to quickly in those 60 seconds dispel the myth. So I think we do a good job, but we want to do better. So.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to note that everything gets studied in the scheme of anthropology, of what we do, of population science and population health, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I use the example, especially for COVID, for the vaccines, and people who say, well, I don't want to be a part of that experiment. This is all an experiment. And, well, none of us have ever lived through this before, because the last time this came around was 1918. But the people who are not willing to consider, being a part of this are part of the control. We see what happens when we don't. And so while it's not a classic part of a clinical trial in the sense that we may compare one arm to another arm of people who are getting treatment, we certainly do overall compare to people who got no participation, who didn't get treatment. And so it all still gets counted and analyzed. And I think that, you don't necessarily opt out because we're here on this earth. So we are a part of all of what happens in our health and in our health systems and in the scope of medicine even, you know?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I was going to add one more thing. COVID has added a whole nother level of complication. And when I saw the news yesterday about, General Powell, and he's actually a family friend, my stepdad's a general, and they said, oh, he died of COVID. He did
No.
not die of COVID. He had
No.
Parkinson's disease,
Right.
and he had multiple myeloma, which is a very, very serious cancer. He's been very sick for a while. And actually, we spoke to him recently, and he even said, the COVID vaccine helped him from not getting not getting as sick as he could have gotten from that. But he was very ill with two very very fatal diseases. So
And 84.
and 84. And I don't
Right.
want people to walk away saying, oh boy, Colin Powell got the vaccine and he died. Like, that is not what happened. And so, but stuff like that hits the media. It didn't, the article came out about COVID, like first 2 hours later, they came back, oh yeah, by the way, he had multiple myeloma. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
So I just want to, stop that he would tell you, as many people who've had the vaccine would tell you, that it is something that we have to do, and we have to take advantage of that science. So my little plug for the vaccine. So
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I got my
You guys
booster
are-
recently.
me too. I'm
Yes,
boosted
yes.
up, man. I'm
Got
ready.
my
Yep,
booster.
me too. We're ready.
Got mine last Friday. Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. We have so much more to talk about on this topic, and we're going to keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up until a clinical trial doesn't sound like a petri dish. It sounds like something that you just do, right? And
Yes.
breast cancer doesn't sound like something you can't talk about. It's a kitchen table conversation.
That's
We got
right.
to talk to our kids, talk to our grandkids, talk to our girls, talk to everybody, and make it something that we talk about. And then we didn't even get to talk about those cancers down there that you guys also deal with, right?
Yep.
It's a
Yes.
whole nother
We will.
cancer. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here with us today.
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
You have to come back again.
Wow, we are
Definitely.
grateful for your work, for your
Your
years
work.
and years of work, and for your participation, for your educating the community. And I just say keep at it, because the tide is turning, I think, on the way Black women think about their health, the ways that we are forcing our health systems to consider and to see us now
Yeah.
more than ever. People are seeing us, they are hearing
Yeah.
us, there are resources available for us. And like, if there were ever a time for us to be all in, if this was a gambling, situation, all in. Black
All
women,
in.
all in on our
Right.
health, all in on this research, all in on the science, all in on the medicine, because we're all at the table. And when we're at the table, we are not on the menu.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
we are. Wow. Where can folks go for more information? You
Yeah.
got some websites for us?
Sure. Sharecancersupport.org. We have a page just for clinical trials.
I put it in the chat. I put it in there.
Okay, it's a
And you
chat.
did too, Mo. We both did, right?
If people have, everyone is not tech savvy, so if you do not like the internet, you can call the helpline, 844-275-7427, which is 844-ASK-SHARE. We also have, Spanish speaking, and we access almost every language. So do not let that stop you from accessing a clinical trial.
That's 844-275-7427.
Yes,
In the chat.
844-ASK-SHARE. Yep.
Okay. Great.
Colleen, last words. Where can people reach you for more information and reach your organization?
Sisters Network Triangle, our Sisters Network Inc., and also the Alliance for Clinical Trials in Oncology.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. You guys are
Thank you
awesome.
all so
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you. This has
Thank
been
you.
great.
We hope that this has been relatable and reliable and real. That's what we set out to do every
Yes.
single Wednesday night here on blackdoctor.org. And we're so thankful for the platform. We're thankful to the sponsors, Ricky. We're thankful to
Again.
people for supporting us and showing up every week,
Every
with
week.
their questions and inviting friends and family along. So we look forward to seeing all of you next Wednesday night. Oh, Sunday. We look forward to seeing you Sunday.
So Sunday, we're going to be live from Cherry Blossom Intimates.
Love it.
From Dr. Regina's lingerie store. Jasmine, they have a new line of custom-made lingerie for Black women. It's called Maya. It's amazing, and it's all online. So you go online, you get, you take your measurements, they send you a tape measure, they show you how to do it on Zoom. You mail them that, you mail your stuff in, they mail you back some bras. It's almost like Warby Parker for lingerie for Black women. So check out the show on Sunday at 3:00, and we'll be back here next week. And we got lots of stuff to talk about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rusty
all.
love.
Yes.
Rusty love.
Rusty love.
Rusty love. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.